Wow, it's instantaneous notice. Love it, love it, love it. So YouTube's working, sort of. Saw a couple of people just get dropped out tonight. No explanation. Hey, what's going on, Trolls, Michigan? Interesting night. Interesting night. Spent the evening with some landscapers. Part of what I do is snow removal, and it's a landscaping company. So they've all got interesting ideas. I didn't say anything about the book. Some of them know about it, but um, you can't work with those people when you're telling them they're wrong. They don't like that very well. Doesn't go over real well. But it kind of dawned on me because they were complaining about the same thing. They're losing shrubs and what have you. Um, and their root balls aren't sustaining themselves, and this is happening and that's happening. And um, you hate to go in there and say, well, you're causing your own problems because you're using pretty mulch, colored mulches, and you're making food available to the plants that they don't need to spread their roots out and get anything from anywhere. And it kind of dawned on me, it's like, okay, well, that's kind of our garden problems. It's no wonder that our corn's not growing tall enough. It's no wonder this isn't working, that's not working, because everybody's so into got to get the nitrogen down, got to get the food down, got to get it right there on, or immediately available to the plant. Well, then it's kind of like the obesity problem that we have in our country. Well, globally, the food is so readily available, nobody has to get up out of their chair to go get it. And we're kind of doing the same things in our gardens, and we're kind of doing the same things in our yards. Um, Solutions in my book are a stopgap. They're an immediate fix. They're an immediate let's get this thing rolling. But it's not something that you sustain. It's not something that you keep going with. There's no savings if you continually repeat every process over and over and over again and don't allow the plants to actually spread their roots, which is what's going to solve the water problem. It just it's a very it's interesting how intricate all of these details are, and how each piece has to go together. And if one part of it fails, you know, uh, another one was talking about and is going to college for the different educational parts of landscaping. Um, Weird degrees there, which I don't understand, because nowhere in there was anything ever mentioned about the food web. They talk immediately about the plant and up, and nothing looks at the soil. And then you wonder why they have all this soil degradation and all these soil problems when they're completely ignoring the immediate soil situations that we're dealing with and beyond. Um, I was kind of lost in this concept as I'm listening to these guys complain, and listening to them being upset, and how they're looking at the seasons going, well, we're cutting here and we're not cutting here, and then we're cutting again here. And during this drought season, we're going to rush in and put down these fertilizers and put down this stuff to help sustain the yards. And it's like, yeah, but you're going right into the heat season when there's no rain, and you're giving it food so the plant doesn't have to work, so its root base isn't going anywhere to find any moisture. And then you're wondering why it's going dormant in the middle of the heat season. Absolutely, absolutely. Mix that into your gardens too. Um, a lot of problems in our gardens. Um, and one of the people I've reached out to about this, um, the garden, the I don't even want to call it soil, but it's one step from being clay. It's so hard. It has no organic matter. You know, now you got to be careful. Wood shavings or sawdust, because dust is going to be that kind of an issue too. It's right in the cusp of being not a problem, um, but it's so close to being dangerous. Sawdust, because it can compact so easily. That's the only thing. Because you need that air. You need the air in the flower beds. You need that air in the gardens, or things don't compost correctly. Um, and that's another tremendous thing. People are tearing my book apart and going, "Well, I just want to use this bit, or I just want to use this bit, or why this bit, why that bit." It all works in conjunction. It all works together. One individual is looking at garlic going, "Yeah, but you said," and it's like, "Yeah, but I also said if your yard is sick, you're going to have a bug infestation, and no matter what you do, you're not going to stop that because Mother Nature is going to come to try and fix that problem." And it's like you can't, you have to understand it. All of this is like a domino effect. One little piece out of place, if one's not healthy, if one little part's just not there, the whole domino effect just runs, and Mother Nature comes in to try and help and try and do her thing. Reading the yard, reading the roots, reading the soil, and most people are going to be dealing with a soil situation. That's just like the compost situation. People don't understand, and I saw this. For those of you that have the book, you're going to understand where I'm referencing this. I saw this in 40 feet of difference from one garden bed to the other garden bed, that there is a microbiology difference just 40 feet away. So your composting and your composting practices are going to be ever so slightly different from the one across the street. Sunlight difference, water difference, what's being added, what's being used. There's so many different variables that are going to get in the way. You know, People are going to look at some of the book and go, okay, well, you have this thing in here for dealing with weeds. So I have a weed problem. So I'm just going to do this weed problem while they're not addressing the rest of the issues. And they're not going to help the soil situation. They're not going to be adding grass. They're not going to be, for one has to deal with the other, has to deal with the other. All of them lean on each other. All of them work in succession. You can't just take one part and say, that's all I'm going to use. It all has to work together. Just like if and you've probably seen this, trolls. Um, if you forget, and it happens, if you forget in your compost and you get your microbiology is running right and everything, but you forget 1 week, 1 day to turn the compost and to get the compaction out so that you get the air in and the moisture in, um, that it burns or it gets an ash or it gets and that's toxic. That gray level, that's a microbial nightmare. Very toxic to plants, and people don't understand. This is a scheduled thing. This is a watch your temperature, watch your this, watch your that. It has to be rotated. It's got to get its moisture levels. Sunlight makes a difference over cloudy days, over this, over that, over the other. All of this balances. It's not that it's a complicated thing. It's just people aren't understanding. There's a domino effect. We have ignored this for so long that now we have to go the opposite direction to fix this problem. And it's not labor intensive at all. It's an understanding. You can't just take a piece. You can't just take garlic, throw that out there and go, well, why aren't my bugs going away? Well, because the rest of the yard is just as sick. Oh, that's perfect. Those are the perfect shavings. It's not a dust. Yeah, right. Hey, Vosh, what's going on, buddy? I would say get rid of the walnuts, but that's not because they're going to constantly not see. That's kind of a nature thing too. Not so much that, okay, yeah, they're constantly in the yard. They're constantly digging. They're constantly this. They're constantly that. And they're doing their thing. They're kind of helping. That's a little air pocket, and they're throwing their nut in there and they're burying it, and then they disappear. And they come back and do another one, and they come back and do another one, and then throughout winter, they're coming back and they're looking for their nuts and what have you. If those nuts aren't gathered and they begin to break down in the soil, that's a natural feed. That's a natural nitrogen. That's a natural everything in the soil. As long as you don't allow that thing to germinate to the point of you now have another walnut tree growing, that's just going to degrade in the soil, um, and work wonders. Um, there are garden plants, and I just don't have the research in front of me. There are garden plants that you can use that will drive off the squirrels, and give you more walnuts that you can gather and sell off and do whatever with. Um, but it's like an irritant to them. It's like it's a even though they can get the walnuts falling out of the trees and they go up in the trees and get the walnuts. Um, I can't think of the plant, but there's a plant. There's a specific type of plant. It may be one of the viney ones. I just can't remember. But there's a plant that you can get, plant near your walnut trees, and the squirrels will avoid the area because of a smell or an irritant or something that the squirrels just don't like, so they avoid the area. Yeah, uh, and you'll see too that when the squirrels come in and they turn the soil up just a little bit, um, you're not seeing the roots from the walnut trees, which are usually highly visible under today's world conditions, because somebody in their wisdom, and just like me spending the night with these landscapers, somebody in their wisdom had the idea that all we have to do is put the food on the surface and the plants will be fine. Well, that's why we've got such sick plants that topple over in a 10-mile-an-hour wind. You know, there's a bunch of different YouTube videos where they're talking about, well, to grow my crops, I've got to run these wires and so that when the wind blows in from the south or whatever, um, that my corn stalks don't fall over. Well, your corn stalks are falling over because they don't have any root base, because you're putting all of your food right there at the very top. And just like with the obesity issue, the plants aren't having to work. They don't have a root base. They're not looking and searching for different foods. The food web will help feed those plants and spread the roots of those plants. But if everything is nitrogen on top, everything is food on top, everything is, nothing expands, nothing grows, nothing moves on. You've got to have you've got to have the organic matter. Um, One of the things no one's really discussing, and I saw this in 3 different gardens already this year. Um, there there's no roots left behind. People are going into their hand gardens, their immediate garden next to their house, at the end of the season, and they're ripping out everything. Now, not only should you not have an open garden bed, you should have a cover crop on it, or you should be burying that in leaves, but don't rip those roots out. There's some tremendous benefits leaving all of those roots behind. Um, on the microbial level, on the organic materials level, on the water soluble levels. If you're working a garden, don't rip out the roots of last year's growth. Leave that stuff there. Put another plant in next to it, the same plant. The beneficial microbes that were on the old roots are going to regenerate, regerminate, gather back up on the same plant, and continue growing and continue helping the new plant. There's this very delicate balance, and you see it in your composts. There's this very delicate balance between beneficial microbes and non-beneficial microbes. And every time we change conditions and every time we rip things apart, Mother Nature is going to come in to do her thing, and we disturb that. I mean, we're the most disruptive thing on the planet. There have been grazing animals on this planet forever, old growth forests forever, this, that, or the other. And then we come in, deserts expanding, we have no growth of anything, and people are standing back going, we have a global warming problem. No, we have a man made problem. We wiped everything out because our immediate thinking is we're better than Mother Nature and better than God's way, and it's not true. You can't. It's all a domino effect. What they did 200 years ago, up to this, up to this, up to this, up to now, and now we have a situation where everyone's looking at their yard going, "I have all clay." You have a oxygen poor, liquid poor, organic material poor, overall food web poor remaining soil. It's still a soil. It just needs organic material. It needs sunlight. It needs air. It needs water. It needs the organic life back in it to become topsoil again. And that's where, when I say don't rip those roots out of the gardens, that's what I'm talking about. Those roots went so deep. You're going to come in with another plant exactly the same or pretty close to the same, plant it there. It's going to follow those old root paths, and it's going to be easier every time. And that root path is going to go deeper and deeper and deeper as it's looking for what it needs. Now, granted, I've added some things in the book that immediately enhance when you get it into the soil and you get it down in there, but all of those same materials are already in the clay and still available, already in the sand, already in the rocks, already in the. I mean, Mother Nature breaks down rocks and I mean, she's incredible the way she works. Hey, Chris, good morning. Uh, but we've got to give, we've got to give Mother Nature a hand here and stop being so disruptive. Turning over a garden is extremely disruptive. Leave the roots in there, clip the plants off, even compost them and put them back on top and let them break down into the soils and let them break down there. Um, Compaction is our biggest enemy. When we start compacting things and walking on things, crushing things, we're squeezing everything out like a sponge. And we're knocking out the ability for organic matter to break down in the soil. We end up with clay. That's the issue. As we add some of these things and allow nature to do her thing, and again, radishes, tremendous root base, very strong plant. Walk your property line, plant radishes, plant garlic. Ignore it. Don't harvest it, and let it start digging deep down into the soil and getting into the clays and breaking that clay up and opening that clay up so it absorbs the moisture. Let nature do it. You don't need to and constantly thinking, well, I've got to get a nitrogen base down. No, you need to get air down there. and let the nitrogen follow naturally. Uh, I mean, yeah, there's ways to enhance things and speed things up, but it's the idea that, uh, when food is readily available, nobody works. Nobody works for the food. Nobody goes out of their way. Nobody gets out of their wheelchair to reach up on the counter at the grocery store and grab that chocolate bar. Now, if that same person had to go harvest the cacao and bring that back and do the process and spend the 2 weeks that it takes to sun dry it all, grind it all down, break it all up, da 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 da, to get it down to a usable chocolate bar, that person wouldn't be sitting in a wheelchair. It wouldn't be fat. It wouldn't have these issues. It's like, and that's the way we're treating our gardens, and that's the way we're treating our yards. We're giving the yard, the trees, everything, the ability to just basically live lazy. And it's not healthy for the plants. They don't know what to do. This and the food web is going away because of it. If see, the microbial life reaches out, and it's incredible. Some of the microbes that are on this planet, um, one microbial life, a single life form, was found in an old growth forest, and this thing covered acres of property. A single cell organism that big, and it's microscopic. You cannot even see it, but its tendrils go everywhere, gathering what it needs. Well, those same tendrils and what have you for that in the old growth forest, break that down and think it down to your garden level. There's microbes in your garden that are going to reach out. Hey, my natural, my life. Um, these microbes are going to reach out past where your roots are going and find the things that the plants want and need to survive and the roots are just basically going to follow that. The worms are going to follow 10-mile-an-hour wind. You have to let the plant be the plant. You have to let the plant search for its food. You have to get our plants off the wheelchairs, if that's a nicer way to put it. And then listening to these guys, listening to these landscapers today, complaining, that every bush, they're spending $50 getting these bushes, and they're bringing them in to make these properties look good. And then a week later, they're coming in with this dyed mulch, and they don't understand why the bush is dying. You're putting in a dyed bark, a dyed wood chip. Yeah, it looks good, but the root base hasn't even had a chance to start going. And then here comes the dye, gathers up on the root base of that plant, and it dies. So now you're out $50 and you guaranteed it. So now you got to go buy another one. And it's causing all of these problems because of the arrogance of man not thinking about, well, what do the roots need? What does the food web need? How am I screwing this up? What am I not looking at? What am I not seeing? Um, as much as I want to go to work there and just be a grass cutter and run along with a lawnmower and cut all their weeds and what have you, uh, seeing all of these properties just be devastated and destroyed, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a rough battle. Um, they're going to be looking at me going, well, all you're going to want to do is get us to go organic and get us to go this way and get us to go that way. Well, you're spending a fortune trying to keep all your plants alive, and you're the ones killing them, and you don't even see it. You can't just throw a plant down, throw a bush down, throw nitrogen at it, and then bury it in chemical dye. I don't care how much water you dump on it. All the water is going to do is saturate through that bark, saturate through that colored mulch, and soak it down into the roots and wipe out the bush. You're you're cutting your nose off to spite your face. You're not. thinking this through, and if it's a client problem, then put in an artificial plant that's just going to be there and be green all winter long, because you're never going to get a plant to grow where you have all of this dye saturating into the soil and destroying it and turning it all into this rock solid clay next to a building, and then wonder why building foundations crack so easily. It's extremely bad stuff. Extremely bad stuff. I would say, if you want mulch, go get a down tree, get a chainsaw, and make your own mulch. Just grind that tree up. Just Yeah, I mean, obviously you got to watch, because like sycamores can be toxic, and there's other poisons that gather in certain types of woods and what have you. But it's this idea that, oh, because it's pretty, I want this color around my house, so that what, you can kill my yard and kill everything, crack the foundation of the house, and eh, everything has to breathe and expand and move, and including your soil. And as soon as you start this compaction level, and as soon as you start dumping chemicals, and as soon as you start, you're instantaneously starting to add to the problem. We can reverse that. You can't skip one step to see another step, though. That's the other part of the issue. You can't just look at it and go, well, I have pets, and all I want to do is I want to solve my pet problem. I don't want ticks and fleas, and I want them protected. That I'm going to throw a garlic out, and that's going to solve my problem. Not if the rest of the yard is sick. You got to treat it all. You got to look at all of it. It's fascinating to me why. I guess it's because of, we've become lazy. We've become this society of instantaneous fix, instantaneous emails, instantaneous, next day shipping, instantaneous gratification. Mother Nature doesn't work that way. That's the variable. We have to stop looking for the instantaneous and start looking at the, well, what can I do to help? Because once you start to help, I mean, you can turn your yard around in 90 days. Can you wait 90 days? By just going out there today and going, okay, today I'm going to wash everything. And a week later, you go back out and go, okay, I think I'm going to knock out all the weed seed. And then a week after that, um, yeah, things are looking really good. Things are starting. I've still got a couple of weed issues. Um, Maybe I should just cut the grass a little bit lower, so that that gigantic leaf on that weed can no longer sustain sunlight and is going to die out naturally, and the roots will die. I don't have to go pull it. I just have to chop it off so short that it can't return. It's not work. It just takes, it takes the thought of what Mother Nature's doing. What direction are we going? What do we want? Do we want good oxygen, or do we want what we're getting? Yeah, as I'm sitting here smoking a cigar, I realize. Um, but it's this arrogance that we can do better than Mother Nature. And then they're all standing around going, well, why is everything dying? Why can't we sustain these bushes? Can't we throw Miracle Grow at it and it'll grow? No. I'll see that's kind of a, if anybody has ever gone through with a weed and feed, or if anybody has ever gone through and thrown down a nitrogen, there's a chemical compound to it. Um, there's issues there. And that's why I look at the wash. That's why I look at the, let's go play with the kids in the bubbles all over the yard, because every year toxins are brought in. It's the same in your garden. Jets are flying over. Governments are dumping stuff. cars are driving by, um, these things settle in the air, and then eventually, they get down to the soil levels. So to say you're strictly 100% organic, there's a chemical issue going on that is affecting the food web, that is affecting your plants. That's why in a lot of our forests and a lot of our woods, trees are just dropping over dead for with no explanation. Um, and they're not understanding. And it's like, well, yeah, you're spraying this non-organic material in the sky because you think you're going to help the greenhouse emissions issue, and you think you're going to help, deflect the sunlight and deflect certain radiation. This stuff eventually falls. It's called gravity. Everything you spray up is going to come down. It's a matter of watching conditions and responding. Weeds will tell you. Weeds will tell you what's going on. You can look at weeds and understand. Ooh, there's a problem over there. It needs this. It needs that. It need. I can go help that. Um, but yeah, I mean it's drive around the neighborhoods, especially after a windstorm, and look at the root balls of old trees that are now knocked over, and it's like Mother Nature came along, or somebody came along with a saw and just sliced off about 2 feet underneath the tree. It's gone, and it's man and his arrogance, and it's these chemicals being sprayed, and it's this. We're missing something. We're missing a step, and the step is the food web. When we overlook that organic matter between topsoil and soil, that's the difference. It's the living organic matter, and past tense organic matter in topsoil that makes it topsoil. When the organic matter fades, it becomes just standard soil, not to the point of being dirt yet, but it all has an effect. It all drops. Hi, Jamel. Uh, yeah, it's everything leans on everything else. You can tremendously expand your topsoil by just giving it organic matter, giving it something to digest, giving it something to expand to, giving it somewhere to go. Um, the trees are being affected by the lack of food web. Their cars and um, um, us under the idea that all we need to do is put the food on the top and everything will be fine, is wiping. You get this little section of roots, and everything underneath the center of that sucker is gone and dead because the food web died. The food web retracted itself. The food web dissolved in essence and went away. And everything that was living and was organic and has compacted, died, and become clay directly underneath these trees. It's our arrogance that to feed a plant, all we have to do is throw it on the top of the soil and everything will be fine. That's not reality. That's not the way Mother Nature works. That's not the way the food web works. You want to help the food web, give it some sugar. It's pretty simple. As that sugar saturates in, the food web's going to chase that sugar. It loves sugar from plants. As it goes deeper, so do the roots following it, and everything leans on everything. And as the food web expands, the worms come back, and the worms do their thing, and the roots. You know, there was a study done where they went out in Arizona, I believe it was, and they went to an untouched pasture that was ignored 50 years, and nature had just done its thing, and everything was doing just great. Yes, deer grade molasses. And they took a section and basically slid a piece of glass 25 feet down. They removed all that soil, all that life and everything, washed all the roots down, and grass and some of the weeds and some of the wildflowers and what have you, legitimately 25 feet deep in topsoil, because it was all topsoil, 25 feet down, because nobody had touched it. Nobody had gone out there and said, you need fertilizer, you need nitrogen, you need your potassium, you need your. The roots were that deep. When the rain comes and it soaks in, it soaks in. It has somewhere to go. It follows the organic life. It goes where the roots are. It just follows these open trails that the worms leave behind. 25 feet deep. Now go out in your yard, dig a hole. How deep do your roots go? That's just for your grass. Imagine the trees, your garden. They used to say that a tree is twice as tall in the soil as it is above ground. So when you see a tree that's 15 feet tall, it's got 30 feet of roots below it, and we're killing it. In our arrogance and our misunderstanding, we're killing it. The chemicals coming into the leaves, soaking down through that and burning everything underneath. The the tremendous amounts of nitrogen that people are throwing down in their yards, you know, uh, uh, the roots don't need to go anywhere. They just sit on the top, they get fat, and then as soon as the rain comes, everything picks up, washes away, and moves. You've all seen the videos where, you know, the rain came and the grass, as thick as it was, just lifted up right off the soil, wasn't connected. People were walking on these pillows of grass, and everything underneath was just this big puddle of water. The water had nowhere to go. Yeah, the grass was all on the surface and the roots were intertwined and it was holding the water, but that's that's a soil degradation problem. That's the we have to throw food on top. We have to get out there with our weed and feeds. We have to. That's what there's perfect example. We got to get off this mindset. The foods are out there. The things are available. Um, you want grass that's got deeper root base? Cut it shorter. Don't chop it dead. Cut it shorter. Shorter grass will not allow weeds to populate right off the bat, because weeds have to have the sunlight. They're doing something different. They have to have the sunlight. So you cut your grass a little bit shorter than you're used to, but don't. I mean, that's not a continual, and that's not the solution to weeds. It's all a domino effect. Everything leans on everything else. You're better off leaving things alone and letting Mother Nature fix it than you are to go out there and only half do something. Mother Nature will reclaim everything. Just look at these deserted cities and look at where trees are growing, where they technically shouldn't be able to. You know, and the trees and the roots, they're expanding throughout, parking lots, in destroying parking lots and they're ripping things apart. That's Mother Nature's way. Mother Nature's gonna fix. We can keep trying to stop it and keep trying to stop it and keep with this arrogance, but there's a better way. Mother Nature's been trying to show us all this time. We can do better. Let Mother Nature help. Help Mother Nature. It's not about uh, it's not about us. You know, we've got to get off the idea that the mulches, the colored mulches, are so pretty and they belong up next to our house. Why is everything dying in my flower bed? You put in a colored mulch, the color's going to go somewhere. You're wiping out the food web. Leave it alone. You want a flower bed? Plant wildflowers. Let it come back every year. I have these beautiful garlics every single year that put these tremendous flowers out. They're absolutely incredible looking, and I keep that whole bed constantly covered all year long, whether winter or summer. Um, and I don't have a weed issue in this bed, and it's just strictly garlic every year. And the bed is expanding, and the soils are softening and richening. Um, there's scientists out there, and you can follow them online, and you can do what have you, and they're all saying the same thing. You should not need a shovel to dig up your yard. You should be able to do it with your bare hand. But because we're using all these chemicals, we're hardening everything up. We're killing off the food web. Everything is compacting. Soil compaction is increasing. And no one seems to just see the reality of this. It's a simple fix. It's very simple. And in our arrogance, we've just totally overlooked it. Aeration is tremendous. Mother Nature will provide it. Give it a reason to provide it, though. That's the other side. The whole scenario. If you've got woods around and you're worried that those trees are going to start being issues, and you're seeing the roots from these trees around your property, um, get out there with some radishes. Get out there with some garlics. Get out there with uh, um, wildflowers and what have you, and start reclaiming that soil before it's too late for those trees. So once you lose those trees, that soil's done. It's gonna take 5-10 years to get those soils back. um, get some things out there that are going to help. A radish breaking down in the soil is a tremendous nitrogen booster. Get it out there. Ignore it. Get it planted and ignore it. Don't look back. Let it be. Plant your garlics. Forget about them. They put out some beautiful flowers. You'll know where they are. You'll know where not to cut. It's we help Mother Nature. That's how Mother Nature does things. She throws wildflowers out there, and what we call weeds, and they're reclaiming the soil, and they're trying to get conditions back, and they're trying to do this, that, or the other, and it's disappearing on us. People aren't seeing it for what it is. Learn to read the conditions. Learn to understand what we've done. And it's not necessarily you and I. It's generations past. It's jet liners flying over with chemtrails and man's reliance on oil and petrochemicals and chemicals alone. It's tremendously devastating. Tremendously devastating. So don't just take part of the book and don't just take part of the knowledge and say, this is going to solve my problem. It's not. It all affects itself. It all leans into one, leans into another. Check the textbooks. I don't care. You're not going to see anything that's dealing with the biological on the food web level. And there's our issue. The food web. We have to address this. We have to start understanding this. We have to understand that this microbial life, we have to watch the conditions. We have to make these things available and help all of this happen. But that's my bitch. That's my complaint. They're not understanding. People are missing out. They don't understand. They're purchasing the book. Again, for those of you that don't know, you may happen to view this later. I'm the Green Wizard. Check out my book on Amazon. Check it out on Google. It's now available electronically across the world. I saw Walmart ads pop up today on my Facebook, and there's the book for electronic download. Get it. Understand my story. follow my steps, follow what I did, and you'll see the difference. Tremendous difference. But that's where we're at. So you guys have a good one. We'll see y'all later.